It was an unusually cold night in the small, secluded town of Crescent Hill. The wind howled through the narrow streets, making the trees sway as if they were alive. Sarah, a young woman in her mid-20s, had just moved into an old house at the edge of town. The house was a fixer-upper, but the price had been irresistible. It was old, yes, but it had character, charm, and history, or so the realtor had said. It had only been a week since Sarah moved in, but something about the house felt off. There was a lingering chill in the air that no amount of heat seemed to dispel, and sometimes at night, she swore she could hear faint whispers, though she was alone. But tonight, something was different. Tonight, she would learn the town's darkest secret. At exactly 3 a.m., Sarah woke up to a soft, but insistent, knocking on the front door. Her eyes snapped open, her heart pounding in her chest. The sound echoed in the eerie stillness of the night, 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Knock. Knock. Knock, asterisk asterisk. She glanced at her phone on the nightstand, 3 a.m. sharp. Her first thought was that it must be a mistake, maybe a neighbor in distress. But who would come knocking at this hour? She stayed perfectly still, waiting for the knocking to stop, but it didn't. Her heartbeat grew louder in her ears. Who would be out there at this time, she whispered to herself. Knock. Knock. Knock, asterisk asterisk. Sarah sat up in bed, her breath catching in her throat. She hadn't met many people in town yet, and the few she did meet had been kind but wary when she mentioned her new address. They always changed the subject quickly. She thought they were just superstitious about old houses, but now, something felt terribly wrong. Curiosity, or maybe fear, got the better of her. She slowly made her way to the window, careful not to make a sound. From behind the curtains, she peeked down at the porch. The moonlight cast an eerie glow, but there was no one there. Knock. Knock. Knock, asterisk asterisk. The sound came again, more urgent this time. Her heart raced. There's no one out there, she thought, but the knocking persisted. She debated whether to open the door. Maybe it was a prank, or maybe someone really needed help. Then, a memory stirred in the back of her mind. An old woman she had met at the local grocery store had given her a cryptic warning when she mentioned where she lived. If you hear knocking at 3 a.m., no matter what, don't open the door. At the time, Sarah had laughed it off, assuming it was just a local ghost story. But now, the memory made her blood run cold. The knocking continued, louder and more frantic. Knock. Knock. Knock, asterisk asterisk. Sarah's hand hovered over the doorknob, trembling. She was so close to opening it. Just a peek, she thought. I'll just see who it is. But just as her fingers brushed the cold brass, the sound of whispering started again, low, unintelligible murmurs, coming from the other side of the door. She froze. Suddenly, her phone buzzed on the table, breaking the silence. The sudden noise startled her, and she jumped back, clutching her chest. With shaky hands, she picked up her phone and saw a message from a number she didn't recognize. It read, "Whatever you do, don't open the door. It's not what you think." Her heart skipped a beat. Who had sent that? How did they know what was happening? She looked back at the door. The knocking had stopped, replaced by complete silence. For a moment, she considered ignoring the message, but fear gripped her tightly. Suddenly, the knocking resumed, louder and more violent than before, shaking the door in its frame. Bang. Bang. Bang, asterisk asterisk. It wasn't knocking anymore, it was pounding, as if something was desperately trying to get inside. Panicked, Sarah backed away from the door. She grabbed her phone and called the police. Her fingers fumbled as she dialed. The line rang, once, twice, then it went dead. No dial tone, no connection. She tried again, nothing. The pounding grew more frenzied. Whatever was out there wanted in, and it wasn't going to stop. Sarah backed into the living room, her eyes wide with terror. She grabbed a fireplace poker, the closest thing she had to a weapon, and held it in front of her like a shield. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she tried to think. Suddenly, the pounding stopped. The silence was deafening. Sarah stood in the center of the room, holding her breath, straining to hear anything. The stillness was unnerving, more terrifying than the noise had been. Just when she thought it was over, a soft voice came from the other side of the door. "Sarah, let me in." Her blood ran cold. It was a woman's voice, gentle, almost familiar. But it couldn't be. No one knew she lived here, and certainly no one knew her name. "Sarah, please. I need help." The voice was pleading now, but something about it felt wrong. It was as if the words were being spoken by someone who didn't understand how human voices were supposed to sound, like they were mimicking what they thought a human should say. Sarah felt her knees go weak. She dropped the poker, her hands trembling uncontrollably. Her mind raced. Could it be a prank? Could someone be out there playing a cruel joke? But deep down, she knew this was no prank. "Sarah, open the door." The voice was louder now, more insistent. It was no longer pleading, it was commanding. She took a step back, her heart thudding in her chest. She couldn't open the door. Whatever was out there wasn't human. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the temperature in the room plummeted. Sarah could see her breath in the air, her body shaking from the cold. Shadows danced along the walls as the lights flickered once more, then went out completely, plunging the house into darkness. She could hear the voice again, this time from all around her, echoing in the darkness. "Let me in, Sarah." Then, the knocking started again. Bang. Bang. Bang ***. She clutched her phone to her chest, backing into the corner of the room. She didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe. The air felt heavy, oppressive, as if something was pressing down on her. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the knocking stopped. The voice faded away. And the house was silent once more. Sarah didn't sleep that night. She sat curled up in the corner, her eyes wide open, staring at the door, waiting for the next knock. But it never came. The next morning, when the sun finally rose, she bolted out of the house and headed straight for town. She had to know what was happening, what had tried to get inside her house. At the local diner, she found the old woman who had warned her. Trembling, Sarah told her what had happened. The old woman listened in silence, her face grim. "You're lucky, child," the woman said, her voice low. "Most don't survive the first knock." Sarah's heart sank. What was it? What happens if you open the door? The old woman looked at her, her eyes dark and haunted. "No one knows. No one who's opened the door has ever been seen again."